Sound speeds. Welcome to not an episode of Masked Mics. This is more of an unmasked mics episode. Because you can see right in front of me that I'm going to be talking and comparing the MKH-416 to the MKH-40, two Sennheiser microphones that I recently talked about in my video. Don't buy the 416 for voiceover, buy this instead. Now, I'm doing this video kind of booth junkie style, where I'm going to be having both microphones in front of me and switching back and forth between the two of them, but I'm going to be doing it with my own twist on it. Now, the reason I feel the need to do this video is because in that recent video I did where I said, don't use the 416 for voiceover, use this instead, I didn't do a good job of representing the 40. The 40 I only spoke into for only a matter of a few seconds, and I did like a couple of different distances, and the proximity effect was something that was overwhelming in it. And when you compare that to the 40, you're going to say, well, the 40 is a lot more natural. True statement. That's why I'm doing this video, because I feel that I need to present the 40 in a better light. Now, I'm not doing any processing to this video at all. The 416 is about 6 inches off of my mouth, and the 40 is about 8 inches off of my mouth. Why? Well, because the 416 is an interference tubes type short shotgun microphone. It's going to be basically a little bit closer to my mouth because it is longer than the 40 is. But the capsule of the 416 is here, while the capsule of the 40 is here. So the capsule is closer on the 40 than it is on the 416. And that is a little bit important too, because if I get too close here, the 416 is not going to have as much proximity effect as quickly as it would on the 40. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about, if I want to get way up on both of these microphones, you're able to hear the proximity effect really, really close on both of these microphones. And I don't recommend doing it this way because you don't need to have this much bass in your voice. Microphones, when they're tested at a difference in their frequency response at a distance of about 1 meter away from the test microphone and the test speaker, or however they're testing it. And the reason I'm pointing that out is because if you go inside of that, you're going to be hearing more prominent bass response. You're going to be hearing that proximity effect. And a cardioid pattern microphone like the 40 is going to pick it up a lot more so than the 416 is. And I'm going to back off because I'm tired of hitting the microphones with plosives. Now, I'm going to go and do the same thing I do on a Masked Mics episode and tell you a quick story, but I'm going to back off a little bit more on the microphone first to show you that even if you're a little bit farther away, like right now I'm about 12 inches or so away from the 40 and about 10 or so inches away from the 416. And my back is against my background here, so it's going to sound a little bit weird. And the fact that I'm also not as close as I normally am, speaking into all of my Owens Corning 703 and foam that I have up here, my voice doesn't absorb up there like it normally does. So I'm actually going to lower my volume here in a second, not speaking nearly as loud when I go into my story. But this gives you an idea of how the microphone sounds if I'm about 12 inches and 10 inches away from the 416 and the MKH-40. Now, I did that kind of backwards. The 10 inches off of the 416, 12 inches off of the 40. And again, I'm going to be telling a story here, but I wanted to give you an idea of how it sounds if you're a little bit farther away. Now, I am generally a loud person by nature, and I'm going to try not to be. But before I get to my story yet again and lower my volume, I'm going to be speaking into the microphones more like I am what would be doing if I were doing voiceover. Like, for example, if I had my copy and it was right here and the microphones are kind of at my eye level looking slightly down, I'm not going to be killing with plosives while it's still pointed straight at my mouth. You're getting all that rich fidelity while you're not hearing past me. A lot of the times people don't realize that microphones pick up sound, yes, but they also don't pick up sound on the other side of your face because your face blocks sound from bouncing off and coming straight back into that same exact reflection, the same exact angle. If you were to hear me from the side, and if I were side addressing the microphone, even if this microphone is coming in directly from the side and hitting this part of my mouth at 90 degrees, and it's picking that up, it's still hearing past my mouth. And it's going to be able to hear the bounce off of that wall. And that's going to color the sound. It's going to do things to the sound depending on your acoustic, environment you're recording in. Now, I've still been speaking on the loud side, and I'm going to lower it now to more of a volume that you would expect to hear these microphones at if you were to be hearing someone read an audiobook. Now, let me tell you my story. There's no question about it that I work in the film industry, and the film industry people work long hours. Now, this story here is the reason why no longer do I keep my cell phone in my hand when I go to sleep. What I used to do is I would lay on my back and I would have my phone in my hands. I'd look up and I'd maybe usually go through Amazon because I can't not buy something on Amazon. It's pretty amazing to me. So I would go through Amazon and I would say, okay, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy this. And I would add it to my cart only to buy it later. And I would have to quickly move it out of the cart and move it into save for later. Because if I didn't, I would either forget about it or I would go ahead and purchase it. And I don't really want to have that impulse if I don't really have to, and have an impulse buy suddenly show up at my house. But when I go to sleep, I have a background in doing things in my sleep. To give you an idea, back in high school, I went to summer camp, and there was a time that I spoke in my sleep at the same time as another person was also that they also spoke in their sleep, and we were in a tent, in a tent with a third person. And that person, we just wake up in the middle of the night, and that guy is freaking out. He's just yelling, "What are you two guys talking about? It's nonsense." Because the other guy did not actually know how to respond to me in his sleep, but I was responding to him. So I was the person that in my sleep could actually, pay attention and respond in a somewhat intelligent way, but he was just responding with random sentences. And when I got older, I started to, I got a roommate, for example, when I first moved out of the house. And my friend Bill, who I was roommates with, he and I would watch movies until the early morning hours. And I would sometimes go asleep because we kind of had stadium seating set up, a bachelor pad, what can I say? And we had a sofa in the front, we had two love seat in the back, and we had two chairs up on the upper level in the back. And I would go to sleep on the sofa in the front. And when I would do that, sometimes I would get up and do things in my sleep. One of the things I did was I took a run. I took a jog. I just got out of the shower and I was wearing like shorts and a t-shirt, and I go and watch this movie with him. I fall asleep on the sofa, and I suddenly at some point decided I was going to go jump up and put my shoes on and go for a jog. And Bill was kind of surprised by that, but he was like, okay, if that's what you want to do. And apparently I put my shoes on and did everything I would normally do, went for a jog, and I came back and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I was like, why am I sweaty? Geez, I feel like, what's going on? He's like, well, dude, you just came back from a jog. I'm like, what? You're crazy. But apparently I did. I also would sometimes make nachos in my sleep. There's other things I've done in my sleep, but I'm not going to get into that. Where I'm going with this, though, is that I am prone to doing things in my sleep. And I kind of have to be supervised to a certain degree now to keep me out of trouble. One of the things that I do to keep myself out of trouble as I sleep is not go to sleep with my cell phone in my hand. Because at one point, for whatever reason, even though I'm near no big body of water, I woke up in the morning and I see an email that says Amazon, fulfillment or whatever. We see a purchase, and I look at this thing. I'm like, what in the world did I buy? I don't remember buying anything. I look at my email, and it says that I had bought a 14-foot canoe. Again, I'm near no body of water. I have no place to put a canoe. I mean, what in the world am I going to do with a 14-foot canoe? So quickly, I went in and canceled it. Luckily, I was able to, because I'd only placed the order, apparently in my sleep, only like 4 or 5 hours before. But a canoe? I mean, I can't really imagine coming home and having my wife see this big canoe that's going from the bottom story of my house to the top story of my house and saying, so what are we going to do with the canoe, Alan? So now what I have is this nice little arm that clips onto the side of the bed and comes up, and it holds my phone. So after I set my alarms, I put my phone in there, and it holds it up at eye level. So if I watch a video as I go to sleep, I can watch it and not have it in my hand, because if I do, there could be problems. But hopefully I've given you a good idea of how these two microphones sound. And I want to also point out one thing. You may be expecting this to be microphone number 1 and this to be microphone number 2, but it's not. Microphone number 1 is actually the 40. Microphone number 2 is the 416. So if you've been hearing me go back and forth between the two of the microphones and saying, well, why didn't he just say 416 and the 40? That's the reason why. I felt that if I kind of masked it, then you wouldn't really know which one was which, but then that doesn't really, I don't want to do that. Save that for mass mics. But I figured I might make you think that this was microphone number 1 and this was microphone number 2. And you might have said, I don't know why he just put that and not the names of the microphone. That's why. because I wanted you to think that the 40 was the 416 and vice versa, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you just listened to them and you said, well, that sounds more like it would be a cardioid, and that sounds more like the 416 I know. But anyway, hopefully this has been a very fair comparison, easy comparison at that, between these two microphones, and it gives you an idea of how they sound like. So on a higher pitched male voice, like mine, this is how the 416 and the 40 sounds in my voice, flipping back and forth. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Sound Speeds, and be sure to tune in the future where I do more interesting sound things and bring you more sound advice. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.